Hello, happy Super Sunday, and welcome to Cinema Wellman, where it is currently 8 degrees outside. I am your host, David, and today we're going to be talking about some more of our favorite football movies, along with a mention of some others that we think are absolutely dreadful. You'll even learn which football movie I was called un-American for not liking. So let's start the pregame. Grab an adult beverage and a snack and settle in for 15 football movies making up our Super Wellman Bowl schedule today. Today's big game is between the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. And even if you don't have a horse in this race, or your horse was humanely put down after week 6, it's a big day for sports fans, music fans, and advertisers. Only 2 of today's films even feature the Super Bowl, since the NFL is super protective about that copyrighted phrase, and their savage lawyers will eviscerate you if you try to sell TVs or chicken wings using it. Just try it. The gambling platforms don't even get to use it, which is saying something. So the 10 football films we're going to speak highly of in some way or another break down as follows. We've got 2 high school football movies, 2 college football movies, 3 NFL-sanctioned pro football movies, 3 movies that are supposed to be the pros, but the NFL didn't want anything to do with them, and 1 prison football movie. And if you were doing the math as I went along, you'll understand that those went to 11, and I'll explain that a bit later since I lumped 2 of them together. The 5 football movies we're here to pan include high school, college, the pros, and an embarrassing piece of NFL-sanctioned Philadelphia Eagles bullshit propaganda. Let's start with the swill part of this pig fest. I'm not going to go through the usual year, rating, runtime, IMDb director for these movies, because if you really want to put yourself through watching them, I'm sure you can find that information on your own. When I began this project, I immediately thought of some football films that I despised, and I was thinking, there was one movie with Al Pacino as a coach that I hated. Or was he the head of a gambling organization? Turns out that those were 2 different movies, and I hated them both. They are Any Given Sunday and Two for the Money, and they are both awful, as is Jerry Maguire, in my opinion. Tom Cruise's overused and stupid catchphrase from this movie, "Show me the money," is almost as obnoxious as that time he jumped up and down on Oprah's couch. It's no secret in my family that I'm not a fan of Notre Dame. I have 2 first cousins who went there, and I love them both very much. It is a great university. I just don't support their football team. And it's been the source of some family humor for years. One day at Grandma Lou's Sunday dinner, most likely, the discussion turned to the movie Rudy, which I, of course, soundly trashed without ever seeing. I dismissed it as a Notre Dame fairy tale, which is when my Aunt Marianne made a comment along the lines of, "Anyone who doesn't like the movie Rudy is un-American." I love you, Aunt Marianne, and I love that line, one of your best. I will next trash another movie I haven't seen, which is odd, but necessary in this case. My hatred of Philadelphia, their sports teams, their fans, it's no secret. When I had the misfortune of living in southern New Jersey for 8 years, that hatred only grew exponentially. I also have no use for Marky Mark Wahlberg, with or without the Funky Bunch, so when my school, Chestnut Ridge Middle School, decided to show the Eagles' propaganda film Invincible, I had to quickly think of how to avoid it. You may be familiar with a rule of mine that I finish every movie I've ever started watching. So I had my teacher's assistant watch the kids for the first 15 minutes of this movie. Problem solved. In other words, it's not in the database. I haven't seen it. I also took 2 breaks during it because teachers come to the door, you need a break. I never did this, and I always stayed with my kids. On that day, I took both breaks. Anything to avoid that propaganda. And our last film to land in the pig swill pit today is Varsity Blues. This one was just screened last week, and every time I think of it, it gets worse in my head. Here are just a few bulleted gripes. The script seems more like a wish list of things to see written by a horny 7th grade boy. Ollie Larder sporting a whipped cream bikini to snare the new quarterback was quite a move for a high school girl. Girls at my high school may have been as advanced, but I was so clueless, it really didn't matter. A female sex education teacher asks a classroom filled with high school boys if they know any slang terms for an erection. Like that would ever happen in any high school, in any place, at any time, and her subplot gets worse. More on that a little bit later. The head coach, played by Jon Voight, who I despise, is despicable. This is the stereotyped, hard-nosed, belligerent, abusive coach who only has his job because he gets results and all of that horse shit. One of the players, played by Scott Conn, steals a police car and gets naked with 3 high school girls while joyriding around town in the police car. And nothing is done at all. It's not even mentioned. So dumb. One of the high school boys was played by a 30-year-old man. A group of players go to a gentleman's club where one of the performers is, wow, what a shocker, their super hot sex ed teacher, who then has drinks with them, and they all promise never to say anything to anyone about this. That deal would have been broken before any of them even left the club. This was just idiotic, misogynistic, toxic masculinity, Texas style. And it was gross. All right, enough of that trash. Let's move on to some football movies that we think are worth your time. These films will be presented in order from high school to college to prison to the kind of pros to the NFL pros. And we'll be starting with 2000's Remember the Titans, rated PG, 113 minutes, IMDb 7.8, directed by Boaz Yakin. IMDb. In 1971, Virginia high school football was everything to the people of Alexandria, but when the school board was forced to integrate an all-black school with an all-white one, the foundation of football's tradition was put to the test. Remember the Titans is one of 4 films on this list, 4.5 if you count the replacements, that is based on a true story. And like many of the true stories on today's list, Remember the Titans is about a lot more than football. I was only 9 in 1971, but I remember what a volatile issue race was in the United States at the time. Unfortunately, something we still have an issue with for some reason. What Coach Herman Boone did at that high school was an amazing feat that was accomplished on the football field, but had a rippling effect on the entire school, the community, and the town itself. The script was originally very R-rated and filled with profanities. Kudos to Disney. You might want to record that, Chet, and play that back. Kudos to Disney for asking producer Jerry Kaboom Bruckheimer to remove the cursing in order to create a good family film. I really don't see it working the other way, so that was a sound decision, as was casting Denzel as Coach Boone. Can't go wrong with Denzel. Next up is a high school football movie starring a 21-year-old Tom Cruise, which is actually when I still like Tom Cruise's movies. 1983's All the Right Moves, rated R, 91 minutes, IMDb 6.0, directed by Michael Chapman. IMDb tells us an ambitious young football star is trapped in a dying mill town unless his gridiron skills can win him a way out. This is a male version of Flashdance, and it substitutes steelworker for welder and football for dancing. Did I do that in the right order? I think so. I grew up in a place called Valesgate, New York, and not only was it not a mill town, it wasn't even a town. It was a hamlet. So I had no connections with these young people trying to escape their fates and realizing that very few escape. I will take the hamlet. Craig T. Nelson plays Cruise's coach, and while he's not pure evil like Jon Voight in Varsity Blues, he's still a major asshole with a massive ego and a god complex, and I have a feeling that there are a ton of football coaches out there that fit that bill. I love that director Michael Chapman wanted Cruise and co-star Leah Thompson to try to remember what high school was like, so he sent them undercover to separate high schools. Narcs. Cruz was spotted after a day because someone recognized him from Taps, which was made in 1981. But Leah Thompson went to school for 4 days, and she supposedly even got caught smoking. Nice job, Leah. Next up is another of our true stories and a movie I just screened for this project. So it was the first time I had seen 2006's We Are Marshall. Rated PG, 131 minutes, IMDb 7.1, directed by McG. IMDb tells us, when a plane crash claims the lives of members of the Marshall University football team and some of its fans, the team's new coach and his surviving players try to keep the football program alive. I remember this tragic event happening, but I never knew the story of how the Marshall University football program was rebuilt until I saw We Are Marshall. Once again, this is a football movie that's about a lot more than football. This one is about loss, grieving, and hope, among other things. When tragedy happens in life, we're often confused about what to do next. What should we do? How do we show respect? When is it okay to, quote unquote, move on? The problem is there's no simple answers to any of those questions, and we all do things like grieving in our own ways and at our own paces. This crash claimed the lives of 37 players, 8 coaches, 25 boosters, and 5 members of the crew. Since this was the team's only charter flight of the season, several prominent citizens were also on board, including a city councilman, a state legislator, and 4 of the city's 6 doctors. 70 children lost one parent in the crash. An additional 18 were orphaned. When you break it down like that, you can see how this crash didn't just affect Marshall's football team. Ian McShane, Kate Mara, Anthony Mackie, Matthew Fox, the great David Strathairn, and Andrew's friend Matthew McConaughey are all part of this inspirational film that includes football. Next is another new screening for me and another true story, 2008's The Express. Rated PG, 130 minutes, IMDb 7.2, directed by Gary Fleeter. IMDb tells us a drama based on the life of college football hero Ernie Davis, the first African American to win the Heisman Trophy. This true account of Ernie Davis was all new to me. I knew his name. I knew he had won the Heisman Trophy, but I had no idea of his story, so I'm very happy I chose to screen it for this episode. Once again, this is a football movie that's about a lot more than football, and once again, this time it's also about race. The Express sadly also shares something in common with another film on today's list, and that's Brian's Song. I really enjoyed this film, and it is definitely a story worth telling. Next up is our prison movie, and it's the original The Longest Yard starring Burt Reynolds. And if you prefer the remake starring Adam Sandler, it's all good with me. 1974's The Longest Yard, rated R, 121 minutes, IMDb says 7.1, directed by Robert Aldrich. IMDb tells us a sadistic warden asks a former pro quarterback, now serving time in his prison, to put together a team of inmates to take on and get pummeled by the guards. We love football movies here at Cinema Wellman. We love prison movies here at Cinema Wellman. So we certainly love a good football prison movie. They're more than you think. The sadistic warden is played by Eddie Greenacres Albert, and the hairdo on his secretary, played by Bernadette Peters, is one of the funniest bits in the film. The cast is great. You root for the convicts to beat the guards, and it's mostly all good fun. Mostly. Next up are 2 pro football movies that weren't sanctioned by the NFL for the obvious reasons that they depicted pro football in an unflattering light, so to speak. In other words, too close to the truth at the time. And these are the 2 that I bulked together. 1977 Semi-Tough, rated R, 108 minutes, IMDb 5.9, directed by Michael Ritchie. IMDb says about Semi-Tough, a 3-way friendship between 2 free-spirited professional football players and the owner's daughter becomes compromised when two of them become romantically involved. And spoiler alert, it's not the two players that become romantically involved. And 1979's North Dallas 40, rated R, 119 minutes, IMDb 6.9, directed by Ted Kotcheff. IMDb tells us about North Dallas 40, a satire of American professional football in which a veteran pass catcher's individuality and refusal to become part of the team family are bitterly resented by his disciplinarian coaches. I have to admit that I chose not to rescreen either of these late 70s football movies because I was afraid of how badly they have aged, mainly in how women are treated in them. And I'd rather have the memory I have of them and not revisit them. But they are really good football movies, which is why we're here. The casts of both are amazing. Burt Reynolds, Chris Christopherson, Jill Clayburgh, Nick Nolte, Charles Durning. I painted Charles Durning's brother's house. Andrew and I did. Oh, I already said that. And even John Caveman Matuzak show up in these films. And the characters are named things like Shake Tiller, Billy Clyde Puckett, Big Ed Bookman, Puddin', Hose Manning, Joe Bob Pretty, and O.W. Shattuck. The behavior is very bad all around, which makes me understand why the NFL didn't want any part of either of these. They also didn't want any part of The Replacements, made in 2000, PG-13, 118 minutes, IMDb 6.6, directed by Howard Deutsch. IMDb simply says, during a pro football strike, the owners hire substitute players. Also new to me for this project, and it ended up being a lot of fun. Although not directly based on the 1987 NFL players' strike, it certainly follows the story of the Washington team in 1987, now known as the Commanders. There are too many connections to real life and this movie for this not to be the case, but also no way the NFL wanted to sanction this. Training and practice took place at Glen Burnie High School in Glen Burnie, Maryland, which is also the current home of many people I love. Shout out to my Glen Burnie people. Hello, folks. Happy Super Sunday. I decided to watch this because of Keanu Reeves' second movie where he plays a former Ohio State quarterback. The other one was Point Break. And because it was a Gene Hackman film I had not seen. Both were fun to watch, and zero surprise that Reeves had nice things to say about Hackman after his passing, mainly saying he was really a no bullshit kind of guy. This was also the final film of friend of cinema Wellman, Jack Warden, who is also part of two more movies on today's list. Warden plays Washington's team owner and has the line of the film while watching his replacement team practice, and I quote, "I've seen monkey shit fights at the zoo that were more organized than this," end quote. That reminded me of my teaching career. 3 movies to go today, and I wasn't sure if the next one was a football movie or a disaster movie. That episode's in the works, but I wanted to quickly mention it today anyway. It's from 1977. It's Black Sunday. Rated R, 143 minutes, IMDb 6.8, directed by John Frankenheimer. IMDb tells us, when a Black September terrorist group begins a plot to carry out a massive terrorist attack in the United States, an Israeli commando works with the FBI to identify the target and conspirators and prevent the plan from succeeding, end quote. So this was one of the movies the NFL actually sanctioned? A movie about a terrorist attack at the Super Bowl? Seriously? Turns out then Miami Dolphins owner Joe Robbie got the NFL to allow extensive filming at a real Super Bowl, along with the use of copyrighted team names and logos. Movie cameras used in filming were disguised as TV cameras with CBS logos. Go figure. Well, Robert Shaw is the bad guy, which automatically makes this worth watching. This film was also the film debut of Christy McNichol. Nice. Christy. Next up is a film that I remember sobbing and sobbing and sobbing, 1971's Brian's Song. This is a TV movie 73 minutes. IMDb gives it a 7.5, directed by Buzz Kulik. IMDb tells us based on the real-life friendship between Chicago Bears teammates Brian Piccolo and Gale Sayers, and the bond that was strengthened when Piccolo discovers that he has a fatal disease. This TV film won 5 Emmy Awards, including one for Jack Warden playing Bears owner George Halas. Rolling down, George Halas. I think, yeah, I'm required to say that. Brian's song is more about love than it is football, and probably taught me at a very early age that it was okay for guys to love each other and say it. I love my male friends, and I tell them that. It's not a big deal. It really isn't. One more football film to mention today before I let you get to your snacks, and it also features an Oscar-nominated performance by Jack Warden, 1978's Heaven Can Wait. Rated PG, 101 minutes, IMDb 6.9, directed by Warren Beatty and Buck Henry. IMDb tells us a Los Angeles Rams quarterback accidentally taken away from his body by an over-anxious angel before he was meant to die returns to life in the body of a recently murdered millionaire. I love this movie so much, and I've loved it since the very first time that I saw it. I've spoken about it before here, so I won't say much other than repeat that the cast in this film is absolutely amazing, and each and every one of them turns in a standout performance. Warren Beatty, James Mason, Jack Warden, Charles Grodin, Diane Cannon, tremendous, Buck Henry, Vincent Gardenia, hysterical, and Julie Christie, who I absolutely adore. This movie is so much fun on so many levels, and you kind of forget football is involved after a while. And it's a remake. In case you're wondering why I didn't share any of the outcomes of the big games shown in these films, it's because I didn't really want to spoil anything that you hadn't already seen. I will tell you that the teams we're following in these films have a record of 12-2. So you don't always win in the end, even in the movies. Well, that is a wrap from here at Cinema Wellman and our Wellman Bowl special. We hope you enjoy the game, the commercials, the halftime show, the snacks, the beverages, and we hope your team wins. I plan on skipping this one, and I'm going to be screening 2 Minute Warning and Black Sunday instead. We have a bunch of episodes planned. We're not exactly sure what we have for you next, but we hope you're here for it anyway. And Hannah, not today, but try to remember that. Until then, take care.